In the winter of 1912, a column of Serbian soldiers stood on a beach on the Adriatic coast and looked at the water they had bled for. They had marched across the mountains of northern Albania to reach it. Behind them lay a war they had won. Ahead lay the open sea, and on it the ships that could carry Serbian grain and Serbian guns to the wider world without asking anyone's permission. For a landlocked kingdom, that grey water was the most valuable thing in Europe. They would not be allowed to keep it. Serbia in 1912 was a small, proud, ambitious kingdom wedged into the Balkans with no coast of its own. Everything it sold to the world and everything it bought had to pass through the territory of its neighbours, who could tax it, delay it, or close the door entirely. To the men in Belgrade, a port on the Adriatic was not a luxury. It was independence itself. That autumn, the chance came. Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Montenegro fell on the crumbling Ottoman Empire in the First Balkan War and tore away its European lands in a matter of weeks. Serbian armies pushed west and south, and a Serbian detachment marched all the way to the Adriatic shore, to the little ports of Durazzo and San Giovanni di Medua. Serbia had its window on the sea. Its Prime Minister, Nikola Pasic, told the powers of Europe that his country had earned that coast in blood and meant to keep it. Then the great powers said no. The objection came from Vienna. Austria-Hungary, the sprawling empire to Serbia's north, had spent years watching Serbia grow and feared it. A Serbia with its own seaport was a Serbia that could arm itself freely, trade freely, and pull the empire's own restless South Slavs toward Belgrade. The Austrian foreign minister, Count Berchtold, declared that under no circumstances would Serbia be allowed to plant itself on the Adriatic. Italy, which wanted no rival on the far shore of its sea, agreed, and the two of them reached for a clever weapon. Rather than simply seize the coast, they would invent a country to fill it. At the Conference of London in 1913, the ambassadors of the great powers sat down and drew the borders of a brand new state, independent Albania. Its purpose, barely disguised, was to wall Serbia off from the water. The new nation's coastline was almost precisely the coastline Serbia had just conquered. Faced with the threat of an Austrian war, and with even friendly Russia unwilling to fight over a harbour, Serbia backed down. Its soldiers marched back off the beach. The sea was sealed away behind a border drawn for the express purpose of keeping them from it. The grievance did not evaporate. It went looking for somewhere else to go. Denied the Adriatic, Serbia turned its hunger inward, toward the lands it had just taken in Macedonia, and quarrelled bitterly with its former ally, Bulgaria, over the spoils. Within months, that quarrel exploded into the Second Balkan War, a shorter and nastier conflict that set the same exhausted armies on each other again. And underneath it all, in Belgrade, the resentment of Austria-Hungary hardened into something colder. The empire had robbed Serbia of its sea. Serbian officers and nationalists began to see Vienna not as a rival to be managed, but as an enemy that had to be broken. A year and a half after Serbia walked off that beach, a Serbian-backed assassin shot the heir to the Austrian throne in the streets of Sarajevo. The bottled-up grievance had found its outlet at last, and the outlet it found set fire to the world. Now look at the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia is the most populous landlocked country on earth, around 130 million people with no coast of their own. They had one once. When Eritrea broke away and became independent in 1993, Ethiopia lost its entire Red Sea shoreline, and ever since, every import and every export has had to run through the ports of its neighbours, chiefly tiny Djibouti, which can name its price. In 2026, Ethiopia's Prime Minister has decided that this will no longer stand. Abiy Ahmed is not a marginal figure. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019, awarded for ending a long and bloody standoff with that very neighbour, Eritrea. On the 21st of June this year, his party swept back into power with around 440 of the 501 seats in parliament, a near-total grip on the state, won in an election that much of war-scarred Tigray and parts of Amhara and Oromia could not even take part in. And now, secure at home, he has turned to the sea. Abiy has called Red Sea access an existential question for Ethiopia, a matter of survival rather than convenience. His government looks hungrily at the Eritrean port of Assab, the very coast Ethiopia used to hold. Special forces parade, troops gather near the border. The man who won the world's highest prize for making peace with Eritrea now presides over a military build-up on that border and a push that has raised open fears of war over a harbour. History does not promise that Abiy's Assab will become anyone's Sarajevo. The Horn of Africa in 2026 is not the Balkans of 1913, and a parallel is not a prophecy. But the shape of the thing is unmistakable. A proud, landlocked nation, flush with military confidence and led by a victorious strongman, fixes its eyes on a stretch of coast it believes it has earned, and a stronger arrangement of powers stands in the way. Serbia is what waits at the end of that road, and Serbia teaches one hard lesson. A grievance like this does not dissolve when you block it. It waits, it hardens, and sooner or later it finds another door. The only question is which one.